All right, good morning. Let's go ahead and get started. I am just getting everything set up here. My name is Anuj. For anybody that does not know, I am the field marketing specialist here in Santa Cruz and Monterey County. And hopefully, as the slide still says on your screen, we will be uh, we'll be covering our topic today, Adobe Premiere Pro, kind of a basics coverage level of how to utilize this editing software to bring it into a part of your marketing plan. If you're starting to create videos, both for things that you're posting on social media or things that you're using for property tours or open house videos or community videos, whatever the case may be, and you were interested in folding this into part of that process, this is kind of built to be something that both beginners can use to get themselves started, as well as something that people that are familiar with the software can use to also brush up on some tips and tricks in regards to using this software as a part of their strategy. So like the asterisk says right underneath the title, I just do want to stress Coldwell Banker does not provide this software. There are, as the COVID-19 and shelter in place period has grown, I think there's been a growing need amongst agents for some training and editing software. We've had tons of questions, both myself and my colleagues, about this, and we're all teaching various softwares that uh, are all great in their own ways and are all guiding the point to drive home the same purpose of, if you want to build something a little bit extra into that level of your production, this is how you can do it. So my class will be specifically focused on Adobe Premiere Pro. It is available as a part of the Creative Cloud Suite or on its own from Adobe. And again, like I wanted to stress, Coldwell Banker does not provide this software, but if you wanted to use it, this is a great way to get started. And if you have it, this course will be a great way to refresh on some great new things that have been updated about the software and maybe help re-examine your workflow through the process. And for anybody that's taken classes with me before, workflow is a big part of what I always talk about, and it's no different here, and actually stems from my experience using this software. And before I continue rambling on, I'm just going to remind everybody that this session indeed is being recorded. I will post this video to the YouTube channel I manage. You guys will all get a recap that breaks down a lot of what I'm talking about today in this session, as well as a link to the recording of this video and all of the videos for the classes that I have taught over the last few months, as well as the final product for the video I'm using in the example that I will show you guys in today's class. If you wanted to see how that looks, that is also available on that YouTube channel as well. I am going to ask that everybody please remain muted through the entirety of the session. Just for time's sake, it helps. But if you do have any questions and you're worried about forgetting them, please feel free to utilize the chat feature, which will be on either side of my head whenever you click to open it. I will review all questions in the chat, as well as open up the floor to any questions at the end of our session. So feel free, if you want to just unmute yourself and ask then, that will be the time to do so. Outside of that, there's no other real housekeeping things I need to go through. So let's go ahead and dive into the session. Adobe Premiere Pro is an amazing video editing tool, and it's actually a very, very common one as far as its usage goes amongst both editors and videographers. It's something that's used for basic needs, like, anything that you could see yourself doing with your own cell phone videos that you're taking, all the way up to a lot of everybody's favorite TV shows are edited using this software. So it could be something that functions for all levels, and you could choose the investment level you would like to make in adopting this as a part of your marketing strategy. But if you're familiar with any other kind of Adobe products, I'm sure you know that it can be very intimidating to jump in blind. So like I said, in this class, we will discuss some of the most common tools that you will run into while using Premiere, and that way you can get started as soon as possible. So let's go ahead and dive into everything. Let's gonna just kind of stop the screen share real quick. And go ahead and share Adobe Premiere. Sharing is paused until I return to the window I am sharing. So hopefully everybody is, I don't think everybody's looking at Adobe Premiere right now, so I'm going to do that again. There we go. So first things first I want to talk about is when we open the software. Like I said, workflow is kind of the be all end all when it comes to a lot of the classes I teach, and that all stems from my experience working in this field. Before we even dive in to Adobe Premiere itself, I'm a big fan of organizing the assets you're going to need for your video project onto your computer ahead of time. So all of the footage that I'm using was shot off of a iPhone. So I've had all of those videos transferred to my computer. That could be done one of several ways. You can always plug your phone directly into a computer. You can airdrop it if you have an Apple computer. If you don't, like in my case, you can have them uploaded to your OneDrive and then download them to your computer. But I digress. You want to get those files on your computer, as well as any other assets you're going to require. For this example, it's a property tour video. So I have got the videos I shot on location, as well as what you're going to see here. Let's just shrink this. I've got this little folder right here we've created. That's where I downloaded all of my video assets to, as well as some still photography of the listing that I can cycle through, or if I wanted to use at any point, I have readily available, and music that I am going to be laying onto the video as well. Quick asterisk about the music. This video's intention, obviously, would be to market a listing, well, market myself via using a listing to reach consumers, both new and old, and remind them about what I do and how I do it and all of that great stuff that can happen when utilizing one of these videos. That means it's going to appear online in a ton of spaces, and it means you want to use something that you either A, own the copyright for, or B, is licensed to be used in the public domain or on YouTube's Creative Commons agreement. I teach a whole class about YouTube that is on my YouTube channel, as well as it will be on the schedule again later on if you're interested in taking that. There is a whole library made available of new music that is composed specifically for the Creative Commons purpose, built into YouTube Studio. So I highly recommend, I mean, that's where I got the music I am using here from. So I'm not going to talk too much about that outside of just giving that fair warning. Do not ever, on anything you guys are doing, use any material you are not 100% sure isn't copyright free, or that you do not own the copyright for. In this example, the home I am using is a listing of one of my agents in this example. If you were using it to advertise yourself, if you're the listing agent, you've got all of the kind of things built into the contract that your client signed that allows you to advertise the property. If you're doing it for another agent, just make sure you get permission from that agent. Again, I digress. Let's get back to actually editing in this space. As you can see, we've got all our video files made available right here. Now, there's two schools of thought. You can either rename them here to tag the ones you know you're going to use for sure, or you can do what I like to do and kind of make it a moving process. I've named my first file just so I know which one I am starting with. And you guys aren't going to be able to hear any audio, I presume, because I didn't check that, just because I thought it would kind of muff up the process for right now, but I will enable audio in a bit. So do not worry about that. But if you wanted to, like I said, I've already named my first clip. I could number the rest of the clips I know I will use for sure, but that's just not the way I like to operate. Everybody should be able to, find their own niche in this. But let's move on. We've got everything set. Everything's on our computer and organized and ready to go. So now we need to create a new project. You can see on this landing page, you've got Adobe is full of great tips, tutorials, and all that kind of stuff built into this software. So if you do get this, I highly recommend leveraging a lot of that as well. But what you'll see initially is the tutorial sections, the recent files that you have worked on. So just like anything in the Microsoft Office suite, when you open up Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or Excel, you'll see a list of your recent files. Same kind of thing here. And on your left-hand side, you've got the learning section, home, which is this landing page that we are on, and then new project. That's right where we're going to go. So the first thing you're going to want to do is name this project, which in my case is example for class. In your case, do this as whatever is going to be easiest for you. Just name it by the address, naming it, video, again, whatever is comfortable for you. What you really, really, really want to make sure you do, though, is this function right underneath it. Right underneath where you're entering the name, there's a tab that says location. You're going to want to hit browse, and this is where you can choose where the finished product and its assets are being saved. This is where the creation of a folder where the project is being managed came in handy, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my desktop. I am going to go to that video folder. I'm going to create a new folder in here called Adobe Premiere Files. And this is, again, in the folder where all my videos are, the photos, the music, as you can see. And we're going to put it in that folder. Why? This way, everything, all of the saves, all of the raw files that you're saving from the Premiere software, as well as the finished video itself, everything's going to be housed in one location on your computer. It's going to prevent you from having to run around. Think of it like your house, right? If you start a project, or like cooking, if you're making a recipe, you prep everything in the space that you're working in. You don't leave, the onions in your bedroom and the water in your bathroom, and that way you force yourself to run around all over the place. This way, it's all in your kitchen, and you don't have to worry about what's being located from where, as well as what's being saved and going where. All of the other settings you're going to remain as is. Don't worry about fussing with those. The more advanced readouts of this software will go into this, but all you need to do once you've chosen where it's going to be saved and what you're naming that file is hit OK. And ta-da! The software will, I was a little early on that. Hold on. Ta-da! There we go. The software will open up for you, and you'll see it. Generally speaking, it'll look like this the first time you open it up. This is a highly customizable field of play because you can move stuff around. You can undock panels, redock panels, put things where they need to be. Boop. I'm going to go ahead and just put this back. You can, close panels, open panels. There's all kinds of stuff that can be done. All of these things are navigated from, let's start up here. File is going to be just like it is in any other software. You can open things, close things, save your project, etc. The view and windows are going to be where these kind of sections are all turned on and off from. So if I click capture, for example, the capture window will open up, which is kind of giving me a little fuss right now. Sorry about that. It's just because I'm streaming and recording. There's going to be a little bit of lag time in some of these things. If I wanted to, you know, close anything, same kind of thing, you could turn off the audio meters if I wanted. But again, this is where you can kind of navigate the basic space that you'll be operating in. Learning is always going to be this first tab right up here on the menu. The second one, assembly, is where you will, much like if you think an assembly line, this is where you are going to gather all of those assets from that folder and then start moving them into this timeline section down here where the actual project itself gets managed. Editing, color, effects, audio, and graphics are all functions that operate in separate windows like these that will be visible to you guys once I actually load a project in here. So I'm going to dive into some of those once we start assembling the sequence. And first things we want to do is, as you can see right here, it just says import media to start. So I'm just going to double click here and I'm going to go right to my desktop and go into my Crossroad video tour file. And I'm going to go ahead and select everything in here except the Adobe Premiere folder. So I've got photos, music, all of my videos, and I'm going to hit open. That will, as you can see, import all of those files into the media bay. Now, the cool thing about assembling things in this software is, as Adobe has grown over the years, a lot of these things are built, especially for newcomers and for people that are just trying to do the basics, to do, and I'm going to show you guys some tricks for stuff to do it all in a way that is most efficient for the user. The first thing we're going to do is grab that video one. So I know which one I'm starting with because I labeled it as such. If you're just working back and forth, what you can always do is go in, open that video that you think is going to be used next, and then match up the file name to do what we're doing here. But like I said, I've already labeled it, so I'm going to go ahead and right click on that video I want to start with, and I'm going to hit New Sequence from Clip. And as you can see, it's dumped the video and subsequent audio file associated with that video right into the timeline, and you've got your preview window right up here. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on editing to kind of get the main space opened up here. But what you're going to see, let's shrink this down a little bit, is the video will come in and all of these settings regarding anchor point, color schemes, the frame rate that it was shot in, all of that will automatically adjust to the file you're importing if you go about it the way we just did. So by creating a new sequence from the clip we've uploaded, Adobe is basically reading that video file and adjusting all of the parameters around which the video will be built from that source project. So this way, if you were to go file and, start a new project and import by opening a new video file, the first thing it's going to ask you is to edit some of those things, to confirm the frame rate, to confirm the white balance, things like that. You can avoid all of that by just importing it in here and letting Adobe do that on its own. This is a good time to note, especially before we dive into the color section, that most cameras, especially iPhones, have what's called a color correction already baked into the camera, meaning things like the white balance on the camera are automatically adjusted by the phone to maintain a certain standard of image. So there isn't going to be too much hard editing that you need to do with most cameras when you're talking, basic stuff that we're doing here. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking on color for that specific reason. But what you see here is, like you'd imagine, a preview of that file we're looking at. It as I scrub across this timeline, you can see that preview change. This little quarter mark, this is the resolution at which you are viewing the edited video you are watching. It's never going to work well on full unless you've got a powerhouse computer. I'm going to move it down to an eighth of what its actual quality will be, again, just to make me operating in this space function a little bit smoother while I'm teaching this class. But that's something you're going to want to be conscious of, is you're probably going to want to knock that down, because the amount of time your computer has to spend actively rendering this file for previews will work against you in how long it takes to just operate in this software as a whole. If that doesn't make sense, what it generally means is it's just going to allow your computer to work less hard on generating this preview file, so then your computer can focus more on you operating in this software itself. Moving on. So let's say I've already gotten, you've got your first video clip in here. Now, I'm not a big fan of doing any of the hard editing until you get all of the pre-selected assets into the video itself, meaning we're going to load in everything we want and move it where we want it before we start editing individual clips. So I know that, for example, this clip is going next. Now that we have added and created our sequence, all I need to do is go into this media browser and pick up my next video and move it into the sequence. So you can either snap them right next to each other, or you can leave a little bit of space, which is what I like to do when I'm getting started. And as you can see, if I hit play, it's going to start to generate a preview of what that video file is. I'm just going to go ahead and stop it because it's going to make my computer work well over its capacity. But what we can see here is I can click now and see this additional sequence. And that actually isn't the right clip. So what I'm going to do is, you can see my cursor navigating in this space. You can select individual clips, and as you can see, the editing will change. Now I have the audio when I'm selecting the audio. This will give you the video when I'm selecting the video. When I select both, you get, guess what? Both. And you can move both. You can edit both. As you can see, those little red icons will allow you to shrink playback or increase playback to the full size of the file. We're going to go put a pin in that. We'll go over that in more detail in a minute. And in this case, I'm going to hit my delete button or clear and remove that file. My actual next clip is this one. I'm going to drag that in here. Perfect. So now that that's in here, I have got my first and second clip organized. You can see a little bar down here will allow you to scrub up and down this timeline. If you, as you can see, I've got a normal cursor. It turns into a finger, a little hand. When you hover over the dot at the end of that scrub bar, you can increase or decrease the value at which you're looking at in regards to time. So I can make this scrub across a lot more time in each of the windows. This will allow me to add more clips without having to move back and forth very difficultly. What we're going to do now is I'm just going to, for time purposes, I'm going to grab a couple of more clips here and get them loaded. Let's drag that in. Now, actually, what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and minimize this and open up our work folder. So what you can see is this video is made up of a talking head segment, which was my camera person shooting me talking about the property, talking about the community in which the property is in, and talking about, you know, myself as an agent, because again, the main point of these kind of things is to advertise you. What do you like to work with? What does your brand look like and operate like? And what can you provide to consumers? The kind of information both about the community that you're in and the home that you're in. We have those videos, which you've seen a couple of previews for. We also have what are called coverage shots, which are just things that I intend to use while I'm talking over, let's say, the secondary room or the additional room in the back, or when I'm talking about the kitchen. You know, you've got everything that I intend to use is already in this folder. So I can grab everything based on what my script and my outline calls for and move them where they're needed. I'm just going to go ahead and drag a couple of more things in here, and then we'll move on with the rest of our example so we can talk about some some big editing here. So let's say those are all my clips, right? Let's say that's what I'm working with. Now, these are all of the segments that make up the main chunks of this video. So what I also need to do now is add in those coverage segments. So I'm going to scroll to the one I want. And let's start with the walk-up shot. And I'm going to drag this to where I want it to go, which is actually going to be right about there. So I'm going to shrink this back down. So what we're looking at now, if I move this segment over a little bit, is what I've gone ahead and done is I know that when this segment starts, oops, sorry, I did move it to the wrong spot. So actually, it needs to go between these two. So when this segment ends and this segment starts, I'm going to need this video to run in between. Now, this will have music running behind it. So I can already click on the audio, hit my delete button on my keyboard and get rid of that. And then move this video right on top of the segment where it needs to go. What you can see here is you've got 3 video channels going up, 3 audio channels going down, and a master audio segment on the bottom. We're not going to dive into any of those complexities because, like I said, this is kind of a simple breakdown. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to select, click, hold, drag my cursor to select all those files, and then bring them a little bit closer to my main ones here, just to my workspace a little bit cleaner. And like I said, I know that this is going to be what breaks up these 2 images. Before we continue with any additional editing, let's move on to grab the next talking segment I want to drop in. Let's say right here, I'm going to drop in some video of the living room. So I can grab that Let's say I want it to drop right here because this is where I start talking about the living room. And again, all we're using is that video, so I can go ahead and delete that extra audio file. That's actually the kitchen. So I'm going to move the kitchen file over here. So this could be, a handy reason to name these. But again, usually how I operate is I'll go back and forth, look at a specific clip. Already used that one. So this is clip number 861. That's the one I just dropped in. 862 is still the kitchen. Let's see, bedroom. I need 8864. So I'm going to go here to my little menu, find image 8864, which is this one, drag and drop. Awesome. For time purposes, let's say now I've added all the coverage shots I need to overlay. I've added all of my main video sources that I need. And now I need to start editing with all of the peripherals added in. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing real quick so I can resume the screen share with the audio. Because now we're going to talk about some actual editing in this space. Let's go ahead and include sound. Perfect. So if we jump back in, what you can see here is we've got, zoom it, so you've got all of our segments laid out right where we need them. And if I preview something, my computer's kind of struggling there, but you get the idea. You'll be able to preview the video files you're looking at, and you'll hear the audio that was captured from, in this case, I didn't use a lapel mic because my voice carries pretty nicely. So the microphone in the iPhone was able to pick me up just fine. So that is all of the audio coming with the videos attached. And I've just added the little segments on top of where I want them to cut in. So the first thing we're going to do before we start editing the video down to the size we want is we confirm that indeed all of our files are where they need to be, which I've gone ahead and done by previewing them. Again, it's going to be hard to do live. So what we're going to do is I know that this video starts right at that audio clap right there. So I'm going to zoom in, move to where I want my start point to be, which is right about here. And I'm going to select by dragging and clicking and holding up. So I've got both the audio and the video for this one segment attached. And as you can see, when I hover over the end of the clip, like I showed earlier, you can shrink it. Now this way we don't delete the extra segment that is there because it comes useful when you're adding things like crossfades in that you'll see in a moment. We don't want to lose that additional footage. We just don't need it for our video. So I'm going to collapse in right to my cursor. And now the video will start right from that point. We're going to do the same thing for all of your clips. Make sure they end where you stopped talking, or if you're cutting segments together, if you need to, let's say there's a blooper at the end of this, or like all of this dead space was me rambling, and we want to make sure that that does not show up in any kind of crosscut because we're going to immediately jump to another clip. We can use this razor tool right here. You've got a handful of editing tools. You have a hand tool, a type tool to add text, the slip tool for editing, and the ripple edit tool, which will condense clips right to your edit point. All of those are a little bit more complicated. So all we want to focus on is the selection tool and the razor tool. We're going to take the razor tool. Will always work right on your cursor, and you can click. And as you can see now, I've cut the video into 2 separate segments. We're going to do the same for the audio on the same space by clicking, going back to choose our selection tool. And now you can highlight and hit delete and remove that extra segment. Then we can grab our next piece and snap it right where it needs to go. And you'll see that the Adobe video files are built to connect together. It kind of will automatically grab them and give you a little notice to know that now these are running right in conjunction. And all I want to do now is clear this dead space. So I'm just going to actually move this down by selecting these to here. And you're going to drop and drag over. And again, it's a rinse and repeat to edit that clip. So we're going to want to close this one. We'll drag it to right about here, and then bring our next one over. This one starts right there, so I'm going to drag, collapse, and move. Now, this segment, I know will drop right in here between these two. So I'm going to drop it right there, and then bring this one right over. These other ones are overlaid based on the audio of what I'm saying right on top of these. I'm going to leave them there for now. So now I can take my whole timeline and drag it, select the whole thing, and drag it right to the beginning because I want it to start right at the beginning. And as you can see, your timeline, now everything is at 0, 0, 0, and everything will end right about 6 minutes and 52 seconds. So right about 7 minutes for this clip we are working on. Now, what do we need to do next? Now we want to go ahead and bring in the background music that we'll be using. We're going to go back to our dock station here and go into Media Browser, where we can go right into our folder. Oops, I'm going to go users. Got my desktop here. And I'm going to go to my folder. Or you can also do it right from assembly and open it up in the bigger space like we were to start. I'm going to do this just so it's easier to see. I'm going to go into just waiting a sec for this to open. But what you can also, there we go. Okay. Let's get into my desktop. Sorry about that, guys. Like I said, the computer's working a little overtime with the streaming going on. Can go into my video file here, and bam, that's my folder called music. I can go ahead and grab the clip I want, and we're going to drag it right into this audio 2 field. Perfect. And as you can see, it's color coded differently for your convenience. And let's go now back from assembly to editing. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do, now that we've got the music in here, is trim it down to wherever it needs to end. Usually let it run just a hair extra. And then what we're going to do is go ahead and click and select all of the audio clips in your original video. So these are, in essence, that's all of the dialogue, right? That's all of me talking to the camera about the property, about the community, all that good stuff. We're going to select all of those and hit your audio button. So Adobe has this great system already built in that will allow you, you don't have to select all of them because apparently it's going to forget anyway. So now you can go in and click on each segment if you would like, or I'm going to go ahead and select the lot. And you can tag it dialogue. Now, again, there's a ton of built-in stuff already hit here. You don't necessarily need to fuss with any of it. And you don't need to turn things like the equalizer on. If you want, you can enhance your speech and choose male or female, and it will work to equalize it a little bit. Or you can turn it off. Automatically, it'll have a loudness repair and a clarity filter, again, just to kind of auto adjust a few things. There are a handful of built-in equalizers if you wanted to fuss with those. But like I said, you could let the system do it on its own and leave it be. All you have to do is hit that dialog button. And now all of these, as you can see, are tagged as such. Because when we click on them, that dialog bar pops up. Our second segment right here, which is the music, is obviously going to get tagged music. And the only thing you need to do here is enable what is called ducking. This will automatically turn that music into background noise against the dialogue. So what you need to do is, why we set the dialogue first is because now that we're turning ducking on, we need the music to duck against the dialogue. There are some sensitivity amounts here, but it's going to automatically generate that itself. You can also generate the keyframes by hitting generating keyframes, and it will do that on its own as well. But now your audio will increase where needed and decrease where needed, with the emphasis being around the dialogue that's happening when it's happening. So let's again go back to our editing, and we can now clean up the rest of the video and the audio for that matter. So the first thing we're going to do is, you will see, now that we're back in the editing tab, you will see an effects meter right here in this media library window. So instead of media browser, you can click info to see information on the clip. And what we're looking for is effects. So the first thing we're going to do is put our audio transitions in. We can click audio transitions. We go to crossfade, and all of these are built into the Adobe software. Exponential fade is going to go from 0 to 100 and 100 to 0 automatically based on whether you're putting at the beginning or an end of a clip. So the only clips I care about are these ones, the ones that have beginnings and ends. So I'm just going to click on the effect I want. This works for both video and audio effects. and drag it to where I need it to go. And as you can see, it will drag to the beginning of that clip, moving it to the beginning of my dialogue, the end of this dialogue, the beginning of that dialogue. And if I zoom in real close, you can see that effect being added. You can click, and as you can see, you can drag that to make it bigger if you'd like, change the duration of that crawl in, or shrink it. You can also just adjust the number right here in the effect control when you click to select that specific option. I'm going to move over to the end here. I'm going to add it to the end of my talking, and I'm going to add it to the end of that music clip that we cut, and just make that a hair bigger so it's not so awkward. And that's all of the real editing. The music started at the beginning, so I don't need to worry about that. It's all of the audio editing you really need to focus on, because everything else is automatically handled by the system. If we select the video clips, we can collapse this audio transition and go to video transitions. And what I'm going to look at, and again, the basics on what you really need are all in this dissolve pool. You've got cross dissolves, which are used for between clips, film dissolves, which could be used like any other film dissolves. It'll fade to and from black for you. That's the most common. You've also got a dip to black and a dip to white. Those are the only ones you're really going to need to focus on. The one I always use, as you can imagine, is the film dissolve, and it works just like the audio one. We drag and drop. You can select it to control the amount of space in which it operates in. And we want to do that for our conjoining clips as well. And what you're going to see here is we can either do a film dissolve like that, and if I select it, you can also remove them, or we can do a cross dissolve, which will edit both of those clips together. But that is, again, only going to depend on how much extra you have before or after the beginning of that clip. Now, this specific one, I'm just going to hard cut two, because they're made to go one after the other. But in a series where I collapsed a segment to be able to move into another one, when we drag that film dissolve over, when I drag that film dissolve over, there you go, you will see it collapse in on both sides, and you can extend it however far or short you would like. And what it does is it blends the two sequences together, like you just see there in that preview. Now, we move to the next segment that we want to drop in, and we had this little walk-up. I'm going to wait for the preview to generate for you guys. If I scrub through this, I walked very slowly up to the door with the intention of speeding it up to make it look a little bit more lively and a little bit more like a television show. So all I'm going to do, if you right-click on any video or audio clip, you've got this whole menu that will pop up. One of the things that we're going to talk about in today's class is just the speed and duration, because that's something you guys might use to slow things down or speed things up. In my case, I want to go from 100 to 200%. That's all I want to do, so I'm going to enter that in here and hit OK. It's going to turn that into the appropriate length segment for me, and now I can drag all of these segments and collapse them in to adjust to right where they need to be. And I can shrink my music ending to where it needs to go as well. Your outro your exit effect will not get deleted, so you don't have to worry about that. It will if you were extending out, but if you're collapsing in, it's not a problem. And now, again, I want these two clips to fade between each other. So I'm going to drag that over, and it just told me there isn't enough footage going this way. So I'm going to collapse that video in just a hair, bring that clip over, and bring all of these back over to match. And again, I'm going to drag over my dissolve and my dissolve. And let's see if it'll give me that preview for you guys. Not really, but you guys will see in the video that I link in the finale what the finished product actually looks like if you're curious. Just to move on, we've got now that's set, right? The audio is going to automatically increase and decrease by itself to accommodate the speaking that's happening outside of that gap. So I can move on to my next segment, my overlays. Now, all I need to do before we're finished is add the dissolves here. I am going to put them on the front and backs of each of these clips. And then since they're overlays for what I'm talking about, all I'm going to do now, and again, assuming that they've been cut down to their appropriate lengths, we're going to go ahead and just drop them right on top of where they need to go.
Both questions about real estate and questions about the community who just were operating and walking.
And if you wanted to look at color, it's the same thing like with the audio. You've got a little editing section here, and then you can open the audio panel for a little bit more detailed look. And for video, we're going to go ahead and click on any specific video you're hovering over. You could scrub just to get a good idea of what we're looking at, and we can pick color. And you've got a whole window of things that you can use here. For beginners, again, I'm not really going to recommend you fuss too much with this. There are a handful of what are called Luts, which are illuminated packages built into the system that you can select. And as you can see, it will automatically adjust to a specific type of setting. And then you can hit this auto button to adjust the levels for your shot. And this works on a shot-by-shot basis. So you will have to adjust everything by itself. That's a lot more advanced work. So we're going to, again, not really go into that. I can reset and remove that if I wanted to go back to my original image. But that is creating everything and doing basic editing within this system. My videos fades out to black at the end when it needs to, and it starts with a fade in. We've got my audio, all adjusted, we've got my video in there. All of the basics are served. So now, as a final step, we're going to go ahead and save one more time just to make sure your project is ready to go. And then you can hit File and export that media project. So we're going to hit Export. We're going to go to Media. As you can see, it's going to render out the sequence in full. It's just showing you where you were last. You can scrub to anywhere you would like. We'll render out a little clip for you, but that's not really super important. What we do want to do is create the output name and save where it's going. So this is going to be, final video crossroad tour. I'm going to put it in my Crossroad video tour into my Adobe Premiere files, or since this is the final video, we can just put it into the folder itself. We're gonna hit, oops, sorry about that. We're going to go into our folder. I'm going to name my file. And we're going to hit save. That is set to go where it's needed. You've got a few things you want to double check in here when you're looking at video. Again, all of the frame rate information is going to be pre-adjusted into the system. The bitrate setting, you're going to want to just move from 10 up to about 18. That's going to be the best mid-ground bitrate for YouTube, social media channels, all of that good stuff. Again, YouTube is probably going to be the place where you are housing this. I've got a whole other video that talks about YouTube, so I'm not going to talk about that. But that's where you'll get the space to really get legs out of this. So that's where we want to keep it. The audio, again, you just want to confirm that all of the settings are correct. Set to stereo, audio quality high. That's really it. Bitrate 320, which is the highest. Once all that is set, all you have to do is come down to this export button and voila, hit export and the process will start. When this finishes encoding, you will have a completed video. I am going to cancel because it's probably going to muck up my video stream here, but that's operating in Adobe Premiere Pro. I am going to go ahead and stop my screen share and see if there are any questions I can answer for you guys. Feel free to unmute yourselves at this point. I will also go ahead and check the chat, but let me know if there's any questions that you have.
Hey, Nudge.
Hey, Kathleen.
I was gonna put in the chat, but so after you get done with the video and you get that file, is that file where you could just directly upload it to YouTube?
Correct. It'll be a completed MP4.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I share my screen here. When it finishes, you get a finished product, just like the MP4 file I have here. So the actual video itself is a 16-minute walkthrough of the property, and it's part of a class that I taught. So it just kind of talks about, you know, the tours in and of itself, but it's a complete video that you can then upload to YouTube, Vimeo, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere you need it to go.
You could upload to Instagram with that file.
So that one is too long. It would end up going to IGTV, but you could use that file, yes. So what I usually recommend is, you know, if you drop it into like your OneDrive, or like you save all of these assets also into a OneDrive folder, like my desktop is mirrored to my cloud storage. So then once that video is completed, I could go from my phone and then open up that video, save it to my phone, and then drop it to IGTV.
Nice.
And that's where a bigger conversation about, you know, what does your marketing strategy end up looking like? Because then you could say, okay, you know, I'm going to premiere it on YouTube and on my website, and then, you know, get legs out of it over a month by, you know, trickling it out. Next week, it'll be on my IG. The following week, I'll put it to Facebook, and, you know, newer audiences can rediscover this one video over the course of, you know, 4 to 7 weeks.
Yeah, maybe this is too advanced, but on Premiere Pro, can you do like what is it, like different like transitions?
Correct. There's also, I just used those two that I showed you in that editing field, but there are a handful in there, especially if you wanted to do things regarding like graphic transitions. There's a whole graphics bar on that top row that I didn't even touch, where, you know, audio, video, color were that I did look at. Yeah. One of them is graphics, so you can get real elaborate with the kind of transitions that you want to do in there. Like I said, this software can do, you know, it does the basic things like the emails that I send out every Monday and Friday to the agents, as well as you know, television shows and films are edited in the same software. So it can really do everything you need it to.
Yeah. And last question, remind me again where you get all the music from. Something
So I can, since there's not a whole ton of people here, I can go ahead and just show you. So I am a big fan of just leveraging especially when you're doing things like in a crunch.
Mm-hmm.
If you go into YouTube, and then what you want to do is click on your account icon, and then go into YouTube Studio.
Studio, okay.
And then the very last icon down here, and they actually upload this like pretty heartily, is this audio library.
Nice.
So there's both music in here that you can, filter by genre, by length, by mood, as well as sound effects that you can get. So if you wanted like, cartoony sound effects, or if you're doing whatever the case may be, if you want like a car sound effect or doorbells, things like that, you can have all of that all out of this system. Anything that requires any kind of copyright will be listed in the description of the audio clip that you're downloading. And all that usually means is you just need to, in your video description, put, music, copyright, paste, whatever it's asking you to paste.
Yeah, cool. Okay, I think I'm done with my question. Thanks so much. Great class. I learned a lot.
Thank you. Now, that being said, there is a handy dandy link to a survey that I am about to put into the chat. I would greatly appreciate if you took that survey. Same for you, Nadia. Thank you for your feedback there in the chat. I would greatly appreciate. Yeah, the survey goes right to my management team. They, as you know, Kathleen, are always looking to see how we're doing. But I hope everybody found this very valuable. I am going to go ahead and stop the recording. Like I said, the recap will have a nice little breakdown with some like kind of slides built in.